Why should teachers invest in real estate? How can middle income earners make their first moves in real estate investing? And how can we gain more clarity around what we want our lives to look like? Welcome to the Investing Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and my mission here is to help middle income earners like teachers learn how to invest wisely and build financial freedom, even in uncertain times. We're here to share our thoughts and opinions. For actual financial advice, please seek the services of a professional financial advisor. Today's investor is Joshua BOYD. Josh is a full-time teacher, the co-host of the On Purpose Investor podcast, co-host of the Dealmakers Atlanta Real Estate Meetup, a real estate investor and licensed realtor. Working as a full-time teacher and a full-time realtor, I can't wait to hear more about that combination. He is on track to increase his network to 1 million in 2024 while also closing 2 million in sales for his clients. He is passionate about helping everyone realize that they can live their life on purpose through hyper-intentionality and focus. You can connect with Josh on X at JRB Dream Team, on Instagram at Living in the ATL, and on his website at onpurposeinvestor.com. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk investing?
I'm so excited, and I want to throw this out there too. I am so grateful for you for having these conversations and really leading the way for our community, especially my community, teachers and stuff like this, where we come from. This is not just the work that you're doing, as we say over here in the southern region of the United States. This is the Lord's work. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing and start off by saying it's an honor to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. Wow, the Lord's work. Well, that is high praise, and that's a lot of confidence in me, but I really appreciate it. And I do agree. I will agree right off the top that teachers are not getting enough support in the area of finances and investment. So I'm so pleased to enter this space, and I'm glad you're here with me. Josh, let's start with story time. What convinced you to begin investing in real estate, of all things, even while you were still in the classroom?
Yeah, sure. And first off, I'll say too, I think my age is important because when we speak here in a little bit, we're going to be speaking to someone's avatar that's like me, that's in their 40s and they think that they're too late. So I think my age is important here. And here's basically how I got started. Really, I've been investing hardcore in real estate for about 2 years now. And it started when I reached age 40 and my wife and I found out that we were having a baby. This is be our third child. And what in the world am I going to do? Because I'm a high school teacher, but I'm also a coach. I'm a high school band director. So I'm used to working 80-hour work weeks. And I've got this baby coming. And it's that realization that when he is 16, I'm going to be in my late 50s. And I just didn't know if I was going to like the type of father that I was going to have to be. Would I be burned out? Would I be stressed? What would that look like? So I went searching for something because I knew the path that I was on was not going to get me to the type of person that I wanted to be at the end of my retirement. And then also in combined with that, I started looking around at other teachers who were around me who are retiring and they were so excited because they had a 403B, but their excitement was that they were going to retire with a modest income. And see, for me, I have big goals and big dreams. And so I stumbled upon a course, and this kind of ends up how I ended up with my wonderful co-host Eric on the On Purpose Investor. I actually came to On Purpose Investor as a person searching, and he offered a course at the time called Dream Life University, and I took that course as just a regular person because I was searching. And this is what I discovered on that. I had taken my ladder of life and I had put it on the side of a building. And in my field of band, I've accomplished most of the things that one can accomplish. I've won the awards, I've done the stuff. I crawled all the way to the top of that ladder. But I realized at age 40 that I was basically broke. I had no time and I had climbed the wrong ladder. And I have learned, and we can get into this later, that I came to investing because I was searching for something. I knew I needed to crawl down that ladder and go put my ladder on a different building and get to the top of it to accomplish the real goals that I have in my life. And that's where I discovered real estate. For me, this is what I discovered that really and truthfully, there are only two ways to generate wealth in our country. I mean, there's more, like maybe you win the lottery, maybe you play in the NFL, but for the most folks, you're going to do it in the stock market, or you're going to do it in real estate. And so when I went down those two avenues and I studied, I discovered that the stock market is risky, but here's what we all know: they're not creating more land, my friend. And there's real estate just offers the opportunity for anyone to pull themselves out from where they are and create a remarkable tomorrow. So I don't know if that helps, but I will tell you, and we can dive into as much as this as you want to, but I am 2 years into this process. And for those of you out there that are curious, by the end of 2024, as far as with equity and everything else, we'll reach the 1 million status. And that's not counting cash flow, because the greatest part of my job as a licensed realtor is I get to help other people accomplish the same goals that I have. And we've done almost 2 million, or we'll finish this year with 2 million in real estate sales, all while teaching a full-time job.
Josh, I love the ladder analogy, and that gives a lot of food for thought. I hope for the listeners, for the viewers, you're thinking about, where is your ladder angled against? What is your ladder angled against? Is it leading you to the kind of destination and future life that you want? That leads me into my next question. Major investing moves and philosophies often begin with existential questions like, what do I want my life to look like? So Josh, go a little bit deeper in this idea of the dream life. How should we go about thinking and designing our dream life, our future life that you talked about?
First off, I love that you're asking this question. Now that we host a big, it's called Deal Maker Atlanta. We host a big meetup, and my partner Eric and I, we're trying to, especially with teachers, we're trying to get the word out. And you just asked the very first question that I can't get 90% of people to do, and that is design their dream life. And there's a lot of variety of reasons I think that is, but I think the honest reason is most people are scared. It's fear of figuring out what your dream life is and then somehow feeling like you can't accomplish it. Like, if I make a checklist of things to do, what do I say to myself if I don't reach or I don't check off the checklist? So to be more specific, I'll tell you another key part of my story, and that's that Eric, my partner, uh, was his student teacher in the class, or excuse me, I was his cooperating teacher. He did a student teacher with me. So about 10 years ago, he was my student. He went into band directing. I taught him everything I know. And I remember when he turned 26 and he said, I'm going to leave the classroom because I don't have to do this anymore. I'm going into business for myself. And I laughed at him. But he said something that stuck with me. He said, no, you don't understand, Josh. I have figured out what my dream life is. And my dream life is my family. My dream life is my time. And I struggled with that. And here's a little side note for your listeners: real wealth is not money, real wealth is time. Money is only as valuable as it buys you time. I like real estate because down the road, I don't want another 80-hour work week. I'm tired of trading hours for dollars. What I want is real wealth, and real wealth is time. But I called Eric Vogel back and I said, okay, now again, I'm about 37, 38 at this point. And I said, okay, Eric, I have just watched you become a millionaire. Teach me. I want to be your student now. And that was the most humbling phone call I have ever made, because I had to call somebody that was my student and tell them that their life plan was better than mine. So the very first thing I'll say about your dream life is number one, it's okay to call and ask for help, because if you want to achieve your dream life, you have to be humble. The next part of that dream life is Eric had me in he'd had a course at the time called Dream Life University. I took that course. And here's one of the steps that Eric had me do. Is one of the things that we do is not just sit down and think about your dream life, but we had to write it out. And it had to start with, what is the ideal time that you want to wake up? And like a storybook, we wrote out what a day would look like. When I woke up, what did I smell? Where did I go? Who did I hang out with? What did I do? What books did I read? What does one day look like in a dream life? Here's what was interesting when I got to the end of that day. There were some realities, because you said, how can someone go about their dream life? To answer your question specifically is you have to write it down. And you can't just write down a paragraph. And by the way, if your dream life is only one paragraph, I want to challenge you. You haven't accomplished your life goals yet, because your dream life is only a paragraph. I started and I realized that my entire dream life was a life that I wasn't living. So number one, that's when I identified that I'd put my ladder on the side of the wrong building, because I had achieved a six-figure income, but I didn't achieve time. And the second thing I discovered through that is I discovered exactly what it was that I wanted in my life. And I'll give you just a few of those details, things that were important to me. And they may not be important to you, but they were important to me. We're all running a race. Everyone that's listening, you're running a race. I'm not here to tell you what race to run. I'm just simply here to tell you that you can accomplish your dream life and you can get in that race and you can do it. For me, I wanted time. I wanted to wake up. As a coach, I never drove my older two kids to school. I never knew the joy of hugging my children in elementary school as they went out. I already had to be at work as a coach for workouts that morning, so I never got to take my two older kids to school. When they played sports, I had to miss those because I was coaching my own thing. I never got to go to those. I missed some parties along the way. I gave up so much time. My dream life was creating a way to spend more time with my family. And the last thing to my dream life is, I'm a person of faith. And so for me, being able to volunteer and to do things to give back in my community is not just something I believe in. It's a part of who I am. It's in my DNA as a person of faith. But I've looked back throughout my life. I've always given money, but I've never been able to donate my time. When somebody needed something in my community, I couldn't be there to do it. And that's important to me that I get to show up and I get to put my hands in the middle of it and do it. And those things were such a massive part of my dream life. So I realize I've spoke a lot here, and I want to pause so I can answer your questions. But that's my biggest thing is you've got to write your dream life down,
Mhm.
and then I want you to go one more step further. I want you to get a Google Doc, Google Slides, or a poster board if you want to go old school. But you got to put pictures on that of what your future dream life would look like. And I want to tell people out there, dream big, because here's the craziest thing of that dream life that I created 2 years ago for what my life would look like in 5 years. Of the five things I wrote down, I've accomplished four of them.
Wow.
The sad thing is with us teachers, we don't dream big enough,
It's
and
true.
our dreams can be so much bigger.
I love, Josh, that you're not describing this life sipping margaritas, lying in a hammock in the Maldives. That's not the kind of dream life we're talking about. We're talking about a rich life, a truly fulfilling and satisfying and relational life. And you talked about time with your family, time invested in the community, in your church life, all of those things. I think you're hitting some sensitive notes for teachers out there who are teachers and other middle income earners, I'll say, who are putting in those long weeks and really don't have the emotional or mental or physical margin to invest in those other areas of their lives. So thank you for setting that up. There was a lot of rich content there for us to think about. Moving along here, Josh, speak to that veteran teacher who says, okay, I resonate with a lot of what you just said in terms of the dream life, but let's say I'm 50, 55. Is it too late for me to enter the game of real estate investing and start to reinvent myself?
So the short answer is no, but let me go back and kind of describe why I say that. The truth of the matter is every person on the face of the planet is an investor. And this is something I've learned through my studies. We're all investing in something. If you're a teacher and you're working 80-hour work weeks, you are an investor. You're investing 100% of your time into someone else's children. I'm going to say that one more time if you have a family. And by the way, I'm saying that to you if you're listening because you have a family, because was my journey when I realized I crawled the wrong ladder. Is I spent 18 years of teaching, investing in other people's children, and that's been a great thing. If I were to die tomorrow, I've lived a great life. I will have a born date and an end date, and I have made my dash count. That dash between those two numbers is so important. And I want to say too, I work for an amazing school system, probably the best one on the planet. I love teaching. I don't know if I'll ever stop teaching in some ways, but I'm simply saying that it's important if you're a veteran to realize you're already an investor. The only question is are you investing in your family? And are you investing in your growth? Are you investing in your health? Because you won't be the best teacher for those students if you're not investing in your health. You won't be the best teacher for your classroom if you're not investing in your mind. In fact, to be honest with you, and I bring these things up because most teachers say, well, I don't care about that. Well, I don't care about investing. You do because you're already an investor. And if you're one of those, that was like me, because I used to get on a high horse and say, well, the only thing I care about is these children. But then I realized one day that I'm a better investor in the young minds that I teach when I'm also invested in my relationships with my wife because I'm happier and she's happier and I have a happier family. Um, Now, something else that I think is important is I like to bring this up. We can do anything that we set our minds to. The only thing that limits us is us. We just spoke about everyone's an investor. The on purpose investor, what Eric and I really talk about with people is live your life on purpose. Everything has to have an intentionality to it. The truth of the matter is I didn't figure about this world till I had reached age 40. My net worth just 24 months ago, like most teachers, was negative. It's not today. I went from barely, worrying about one mortgage to now I use other people's money to buy houses and I own multiple properties and I don't spend any money on those properties. I hear sometimes people say, well, I don't have the money for that. Who said you needed money to do it? What you need is to quote Dan Sullivan. He wrote a great book called Who Not How. You just haven't found the right who's. You got to get in the right circles. Our net work, or excuse me, our net worth is our net work. If you want a higher net worth, then invest in your net work. Teachers typically only hang out with teachers. I made a mistake one time when I taught in college for a little bit. And when I taught in college, I discovered these great teachers in the business department. And I started hanging out and I started realizing that they knew things that I don't know. And to make a long story short, I now know people. I attend a local meetup, and I'm not just talking about the one that Eric and I host, Dealmaker Atlanta, but there is another wonderful meetup that's over here in the state of Georgia and a county called Fayette County. It's called the Triple E Investors, and a guy named Danny leads that. I started going as a young teacher that knew nothing about investing, and I just sat in the room and listened because I wanted to learn. And I've met people in there. There's a guy over there that owns over 400 homes in a city. Imagine that, 400 homes. And he spoke one day and said he didn't buy the first one until he was 55.
Wow.
Yes. Let me tell you the last thing that's important to me. When I die, I'm going to be the first person in my family that leaves significant stuff to his heirs. Um, and so I look at teachers and I go, not only am I making an impact in my classroom, but I'm leaving a legacy for my own family, one that will far outlive me. And that's important to me.
We are all investors. That is ringing through my head. And what an opportunity to leave a legacy and change your family tree, teachers and middle income earners. If you're joining us, thank you so much, Josh. Let's focus in on real estate as an investment class. When I think about real estate, I think about cash flow. I think about appreciation over time, and I think about the opportunity to leverage equity in order to invest in other properties. We can't do that with our stocks. What am I missing? What else should we be thinking about? And maybe which one of those three really stands out to you as the win that people miss?
Well, I'll tell you this. You nailed on all the textbook ones. Those are all there. But I'm going to throw another word out there that is a little more intangible, but it's my number one reason that I became an investor. And that's the word legacy. See, if I own stocks, and I love stocks, by the way, there is a great book I'll just throw out there that people should read if they're like, real estate is not my thing. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Rick Samady. And in his book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, he talks about generating wealth through a Roth IRA and index funds. And it's a great plan. Did it for years. Love it. It's a slower path, but I want to point that out that it's great. But the big thing is legacy. The biggest win for me is that if I died tomorrow, I have something tangible that I can pass down. You know what? I can't go to my index fund, but I can go to this house that I got under contract today and I can touch the dirt. I can feel the side of the house. And if I die, there's a probate for it, the situation and planning. That's a whole separate thing. But my heirs can have something. I like to throw that out there that's my biggest win. But can I just break down how powerful real estate is right here? Can I?
Yeah, do it.
Can I just go? Can I tell you about this deal I'm doing right now today,
I
this
love
morning?
it.
So let me tell you what you can do, teachers. I am going to purchase a property because I got a real estate license. I'm going to purchase a property, and that property I have under contract, I've got it under contract for $170,000. I have a private money lender that in his business, he makes money because he lends money and then he gets a higher interest rate for it. I don't have to go to a bank. So I'm going to buy this property at $170,000. Now, and my interest rate is on that is at 12%. Sounds super high, but it's not because I'm only going to have it with him for 60 days because see, I just avoided a bank. My credit report looks like I own nothing. because the only properties that end up on your credit report that decrease your credit score are the things that you get traditional mortgages for. See, when I started hanging out in that room at Triple E, I learned that rich people don't think the same way that the middle class thinks. They have a different life plan. They're not concerned with raising money. They're concerned with finding who can be their partners. They're so busy creating partnerships that they don't live by the mentality they have to do it themselves. So step one is if you're out there, you need to do away with the mentality that you have to be rich. No, you need to know people who have money. The second thing is all of you have a skill. I'm a teacher. That means that I can speak. I can change minds, but it also means I'm a good communicator. So I have the ability to find that person that has the money and show them how I can create wealth for them, aka, will you lend me your money at a 12% interest rate? That's a great interest rate. I'm going to buy this house. Then I've got a local contractor that I'm going to pay, needs about $10,000 of repairs. That's $180,000. But then because I did that repair work to this house, it is now going to be valued at $250,000, at which point it will appraise and the bank is going to come in and the bank is going to look at it and go, this is a great house. It's worth $250,000. I'm going to give you 80% of that value. And at that point, I'm going to do a refinance. I now have a mortgage at a low interest rate with a bank. I've paid off my private money lender and I got every dime of cash I ever put back into the house. AKA, I buy properties and when the deal is done, I have no money in those properties. And so I ask people who say, well, I can't invest in real estate because I don't have the money. Did you notice I just bought a house and I had no money? I don't know how to do repairs. You should know that. I don't know. I can't fix power, but I don't need to. I have a general contractor who is amazing that does a great job. I've built a team of who's. How do I manage property and teach school? Well, I don't need to do that. I need a great property manager who I pay a great fee and I make less money, that's for sure. But again, I am creating money from nowhere and anyone can do it. So as long as you keep two things in mind, the very first thing is you have to be a trustworthy individual. Who you are as a person matters so much more than what background. You could be a middle income earner or maybe you're living below the poverty line, but the very first thing that you have to do is become a person of integrity and honesty. The second thing is when you do stuff from other people, you borrow their money. You need I will eat rice and beans, but I pay my team first. And the third thing that I do finally is when I have tenants in my properties or my contractors, I do everything I can to do right by them, to be good by them. Um, from a religious standpoint, every person in my ecosystem, I believe, in my case, God, but maybe you believe in nature. I'm not here to go down that road. But every person that comes into my ecosystem, they've been entrusted to me. I'm going to take care of them because people take care of me. And that's the final thing I'll say in there that the biggest wins that I've gotten from real estate, my biggest win actually is not real estate. My biggest win is that I've become a better person. I've surrounded myself with great people who are pulling me upward and then the final thing is I think I'm a better father, I think I'm a better husband, and that I have a dream and I have goals, and when I was just teaching, I didn't have those because no one ever told us teachers we could. We live our whole lives to get a basic pension, and if you're lucky, you paid into a 403(b), which will modestly pay you. Meanwhile, there are people in the business world that are making millions, and we teachers work harder than they do. 80-hour work weeks, my friend. I worked way harder as a teacher than I do as an entrepreneur.
Josh, I love the plan that you described with the house acquisition. You were involved in it this morning. I guess one practical question, maybe it's an obvious one, but in terms of the private lender, they are asking you for collateral. Are you putting down your other properties or your primary residence, or how are you giving them the security that they need?
So to get into the specifics, and it's different per private lender, they're all, the beauty of private money is that the terms are set by an individual. They're not set by a brick and mortar bank. So the private lenders that I have used, and each one is slightly different. And I won't say their names on here since I didn't ask their permission, but should they listen to this, I want them to know they're important partners. I could not do what I do without them. And so they're extremely important, but the collateral itself is the house. And that's something else I think is very important teachers know. You don't have to own anything. In fact, you don't have to you don't even have to own a car. But we go back to why I originally got my real estate license. These days, we're helping our clients achieve these goals. But initially, it was to find better deals for myself. To be specific, I like to find houses that are broken and need work. And I can buy them at 75% under the repaired, we call it ARV, after repair value, because here's what happens. If I buy that house at a good discount, number one, it's good for the person on the other side of the transaction because they had a house that no one could buy because it needed so much work. I'm willing to buy that house. I'm willing to do the work. And for my private money lender, they like that too because I bought it so low. If I was just a son of a gun and didn't do what I was supposed to, they would file the paperwork, they foreclose, they take the house, and then they could sell it off and easily get their investment out of it.
Thank you for joining us, investors. If you're finding value here, give this video a like. Josh, what's your advice to teachers and middle income earners who would like to make their first move toward real estate investing? They love the sound of what you're describing. What's their very first step?
Their very first step is the wealth building process begins in your mind. And that is important. And it's more than just reading a book. The very first step that they need to do, and it's so funny that we spend our lives as teachers educating everyone else that for whatever reason we think we shouldn't educate ourselves. The very first thing I would tell you is to educate your mind. And to do that, you need to do two things. There's the obvious, which is it's listen to podcasts like this one, The Investing Teacher, where you're hearing guests that are telling their stories and they're interviewing. For me, I was listening to podcasts for my motivation. But then the next thing you need to do that is so key is you got to surround yourself with people who are doing it. I keep referencing my friend Eric, who I partner with now. But at first, he was my person that I would just show up, ask him questions, offer value. Every state in the country has real estate meetups. Go to them because we have this mentality as teachers that millionaires are these people that drive in Ferraris and don't want to talk to the common man. And that's actually not true. They're average people just like me and you. And you know what they want more than the most philanthropic, best people who are centered on who they are and they know what they want in life. They're these people, they're that step right up above us. And I say that to say every single person I've met in the investing community, the greatest honor of their life is reaching down to help someone else come up. And we need to reach down to help someone else come up. But teachers and middle income earners, it's okay to put your hand up. Now, you don't ask for a handout. You're reaching up to say, what can I do? And I should throw this out there too. Offer value to the other person. I know I've done work for free. Somebody calls me up, that's an investor that owns a bunch of houses. I get a Saturday. I say, hey, can I come clean your yards? Okay. I heard one person, I had a friend the other day that owned a pad split. That was their thing, and they were turning a room, and I wanted to learn about that strategy. I said, well, can I come down there and I work for free? Can I just come down there and turn the room and help you? And while we're doing that, you just talk to me and tell me what you got going on. And so that's my advice. If you can do those three things, educate your mind, surround yourself with good people, and add value to the people you surround yourself with, the only other step that you have to take is grit. Have massive action. When you figure it out, have the guts to go do it. And if you do that, you will be successful.
Josh, does the current climate of high mortgage rates dampen your enthusiasm for investing in this space? Now, you just told us about a 12% that you'd be willing to take on a 60-day, very temporary, short-term situation. But we know that borrowing rates from major lenders and banks are still higher than they were during COVID, maybe 2021 or so. Has that changed your approach at all, or are you still cruising ahead full steam?
Well, I'm cruising ahead full steam. Consider my business model. Interest rates are high, but I have a real estate license. Real estate, the interest rates are high because people are buying houses and the inventory is low. To get to the end of that, basically, right now, I'm making a lot of money on helping people, adding value by helping them buy houses as a realtor. But as you stated, markets go up, markets come down. But when the market comes down, I own rental houses. 2008 crash comes again, people lose their mortgages and they need a place to stay. And when they do, I'm going to have a great place for them to stay as a landlord. And I'm going to help them get into a home because that's what I do. So I'm on both sides of this economy. Rates are good, rates are bad, it doesn't matter. I own a real estate process on both ends of the market. So I'm well positioned. To answer your question though about interest rates, they say in the investing world that if there's enough meat on that bone, you can eat it. Let me tell you how I combat interest rates. I'm not concerned about the interest rates. I'm more concerned about the property itself because money is not made in the finance, and that's step 2 or 3. Money is not made in the rehab, that's step 2. Money is made at the very beginning at the contract. The key is buy a house that is low and you don't have to worry about the interest rate because your initial price is lower. In the old days, we would be trying to buy houses at 90% of the value. But I remind you what I told you earlier. I buy houses at 75% of the value. So interest rates are higher, but I don't have as much initial cash in the deal. So that's how I combat interest rates. Oh, and let me tell you, you want to know when I'm going to be worth $2 million in about 3 years. You want to know how I'm going to do it? Check this out. When I refinance my loans right now, my average interest rate is going to blow people's minds, 7.9%. But the market is going to recover. And when it does, I'm going to refinance all my properties down to 5.5%, about 3 to 5 years from now. And when I do that without buying a house, without doing anything, my cash flow is going to go up $2,500 a month. And in that moment, I won't be a millionaire. I'll be a multimillionaire because of the equity that I will have generated.
Love that. And I'm right there with you. I agree. I'm making not quite as many moves as you, but I'm making similar moves, I suppose, in terms of adding a property. And I have the same confidence that eventually the rates will come down and the values, when rates come down, we know what happens to values and prices. They go up. And of course, cash flow does as well. So awesome stuff. Before I move on and before I lose the thought, I have to ask you this, Josh, on a practical level. You've talked about, if I understand you correctly, being a full-time teacher and a realtor, even a full-time realtor. So I think for most teachers out there, they feel like, wow, I am teacher tired. I've got I've hardly got time for a 2-hour hobby on the weekends. How do you make those two work? Is there a piece to this picture that we're missing?
There's a very important piece to this,
Okay.
and I need to shout out. First off, I go back to Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. It's an amazing book that helped me realize that I don't have to be everything. I don't have to be all things to all people. What I need to do is surround myself with who's that will help me accomplish the how. So again, in my investment business, other than financing the house, inspecting the house, and doing things, I don't work in my business. I work on my business. And I have an incredible team who I hope hear this podcast because I need them to know that I'm nothing without them. They are amazing. On the real estate agent side of you, as you mentioned, though, I'm on a team with eXp Realty, and my broker is the greatest broker on the face of the planet. It's the largest national brokerage, and I like to point that out because for me, I have a broker like in the state of Georgia. We are one brokerage that covers the entire state. So if I need to have a house shown and I'm not there, there is someone to do it. But in our real estate agent business, my wife, who was a full-time teacher, has her real estate license, and we work together now as the team. When you hear the JRB Dream Team, or if you go to jrbdreamteam.com, our real estate agent is mine and my wife's business, which, by the way, she was a full-time economics teacher. And I don't want to brag. She was the best economics teacher in the entire world because she was amazing. But this whole journey started, to go back how we mentioned that she was pregnant. We were going to have a baby. And we knew that the choice for us, not that it's the choice for everyone, is that she wanted to be home at least for the first few years. And so, how are we going to do that? I say all that to say, for us, we're a husband wife team, and that has definitely helped because if there's a house that needs to be shown, or if there's a part of that business that happens during school hours, she could do it. But now, Tim, I want to point this out because you're going to have a listener to go, aha, that's why I can't do it. I should mention to you that she was a full-time teacher, but 12 months later, she's not a full-time teacher anymore. We've already replaced her income, and we did that in 12 months.
Wow. Incredible stuff. That answers that. Thank you so much. And wow, this is so inspiring. I hope. And as I said to Eric last week, I don't want to encourage any teachers to leave the profession. I'm staying in the profession, but
Yep.
I think it just opens up our eyes and our minds to possibilities, right? And vision for other trajectories that maybe some teacher, some middle income earner is listening who feels a little trapped a little can't see any options out there. There are options.
I love that
Absolutely.
you mentioned that too, and just to
Yeah.
chime in,
Yeah.
I am not advocating for anyone to leave the teaching profession either. I'm still
Yeah.
a teacher. I love it. I
Hmm.
wake up every day excited to make a
Hmm.
difference. And as a high school band director, number one, I love my school, I love my principal, and I love my students. I have the best students in the world. I'm just simply focused on being better for them. And by the way, something that's good, I would never have to do this because I have a great superintendent. I'm in a wonderful school system. But things change. What do I do if 10 years from now that changes? I have the ability right now that money is not what guides me. Most teachers have that fear. They can't just walk out the door if they wanted to because
Right.
they're trading hours for dollars.
Yeah.
I go to work every day now, and here's the reality. I could lose my job tomorrow and I'm good. Do you know how much less anxiety teachers wake up by the thousands, maybe by the millions, and they have that anxiety? What if this is the day I make a mistake and I lose my job? The truth of the matter is I don't have that anxiety anymore because I don't have to have it. I have freedom.
You are talking my language, sir. Thank you so much, investing or investors rather, for tuning into the audio only version of the show. If you are joining us on the podcast, thank you so much. Consider adding the Investing Teacher podcast to your commute. Josh, I was planning to ask some questions about crypto and stocks, but this has been so rich. I'm going to keep it right here in the real estate investment space as I give you a few more questions before wrapping this up. Josh, what's been the single most positive investment move you've ever made?
That is easy, and this may surprise people. The single most positive investment move I've made is the people. And here's what I mean by that. Everything that I figured out started because I added. I don't want to say I changed because every friend I had before I still have. I love my teaching friends. But the second I added in people that were a level higher, the ones that intimidated me, the ones I thought I could never reach, the second I invested time, then second I invested myself. Look, I invested my stress and I had to put myself out there. Here's what I discovered. My greatest investment was the people because it helped me to grow my mind. It's meeting people like Eric. It's meeting my friend Brad, who lives in another state. He's an amazing investor, a millionaire that did so great that he and his wife live on the side of a mountain in Denver, Colorado. And the reason why that matters is I learned that success was meant for me too. And I think sometimes in the teaching world, we're so busy helping students create wealth and create lives that we think that that's not for us. And I even want to say this out there. Why is it we look at athletes sometimes as coaches and say, the chances of you getting to the NFL aren't high? We should never say that. We should say, what can I do to help you get to the NFL? Or we get that student that we say that maybe isn't book smart. Well, your chances of being successful because you lack intel. No, because I'll tell you this. You want to know who makes the most money in my transactions? It's my HVAC worker. It's the guy that puts the roof on the house. I pay those people handsomely. I say all that to say the most positive investment I've ever made was the people, because by doing so, it helped me invest in other things. I've learned to invest in my relationship with my wife better. I invest more with my relationship with my students, my kids. I am a better person because of the investments that I've made of my personal time with people that make me better.
Looking back on your investing journey, Josh, when you think about your 25-year-old self and your, let's say, the educator Josh who is just starting his teaching career, what kind of advice would you share with yourself if you could go back in time? And I know we don't want to live in regret. That's not what this is
No,
about. But if you could speak to that person, what would you say?
don't s- don't spend all your time specializing in only one area. As a music educator, I spent the first 10 years of my life completely and totally invested in the music education world, and that's why I missed out on so much other stuff. But let me answer this with something more significant, because here's the truth. A few years ago, I was teaching at a private Christian college at Point University down in West Point, Georgia. Great institution. And I remember that one day I was volunteering to work the sound system in the fine arts hall, and the football coach had the football players in with a guest speaker. So I wasn't even supposed to be there. I just happened to be in the room. This speaker came in that day and he passed out every football player a picture. And on that picture was a picture of a football field. And at the top, it said 4 quarters. And the speaker was talking to these brand new college football recruits. And he said, the first quarter of your life, everybody does everything for you. Your mama cooked for you. Your daddy worked to pay your bills. You went to education, but it was a free education. You didn't have to pay for it. Your high school football coach let you play, but you didn't have the same there was no contract. There was no, because your first quarter is all about you. And then he started talking about their second quarter, which for if you're in your second quarter of your life, which is the college years, it's all about you taking first steps on your own. Now, here's what I got out of that, Tim. This is why I bring this up. I was in the back of the room looking at that same thing. I was in my mid 30s at this time, but I had a realization that the first quarter and the second quarter is all about you. It's all about living for you. I was in my third quarter, headed to my fourth quarter. In other words, I'm passing halftime. And I realized in that moment that I had lived half my life, and the only thing I'd ever lived it for was me. Even as a first year teacher, I've been recognized with a citation of excellence from our band association. I was a Grammy teacher semifinalist. I mean, I've done a lot of great things, played a lot of state conferences, done the stuff, been to the rodeo. But the truth of the matter is throughout my first half of my game, I was always chasing the next thing for me. It was all about me. How can I make me better? Tim, I'm ashamed of that because today I look at this and I'm in my third quarter. And here's what investing does for me. And it's the greatest advice I could give other people. For my second half of my game, Tim, I want to live it for other people. It's not about money. Notice that when I said it's about time, it's what I want to do time for. It's time that I want to give to my family. It's time that I want to give to my kids. It's time that I want to give to my community. It's not enough for me anymore to give money and an offering plate at a place of worship. I want to go and I want to look someone across the eye in the eye and do what I can. I want them to see that it's not an empty dollar, that there's a person on the other side of that loves them and cares about them. I want the second half of my life to matter. And if I could reach back to young version, and if you're a young teacher or a young professional, you're going to reach my age one day. Don't live with that regret because that is something that I regret. I regret I lived my life for me. I think our life is best lived when we live it for other people.
So rich, so good. Thank you, Josh. I feel like I'm sitting with a combination pastor, minister, life coach, real estate investing. I was going to say guru. That's not always a
No,
popular
not
word,
guru.
but you are such a mix and you speak so well. So thank you so much. We're going to start to land this plane with a few rapid fire questions. So I'll do my best not to do much following up here, but share with us about a personal habit or a productivity hack that contributes to your success and allows you to do all of the things in the different areas of your life that you've described here in this conversation.
Yeah, the first one's easy, and if we're just doing one at a time, you can't see it, it's on the other side of here, but we have a huge marker board that my wife and I every day, we have our numbers for our business, and I look at it every day, but it's not just numbers for our business. Also, remember, it's important to me because we gotta know about who we are, and sometimes on my show, I look at the guest, and towards the end, I get to this, and I go, "In one word, tell me who you are," and it stops them. And so I say that to say one of the things that's important to us is, again, given in our community, one of my most important goal on there is the amount that I'm able to donate both in finances and time to a couple charities in our community that are important to me. But I would tell you, you want a productivity hack? No, no, no. You need a motivational hack. Most people don't reach productivity because they're not invested to be productive. I look at my numbers daily because it motivates me. And on this board too are my goals, and not just goals related to money. On this board in front of me are words that remind me who I am today and who I want to be tomorrow.
Tell us about one person that we need to follow on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and share why they've been inspiring you lately.
Well, there's several. So for me, I'll give you the ones on Instagram because I'm on X. I'm on Instagram more. But the very first one is because, again, the wealth building process begins in your mind. By the way, becoming a better teacher becomes your mind. Being a better father, a wife, a mentor, whatever that is, begins here. Follow John Maxwell, who's a great leadership coach. He wrote a book called the Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I can't walk away from that. Read that book. It is a great one. He has a quote on there that says, "Walk slowly through the halls." You can do that at your schoolhouse tomorrow. Walk slowly through the halls. Take the time to get to know people. The second one is actually a pastor, happens to be my pastor, but he's a great leadership coach. I highly suggest you follow Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley, just to put that out there, if you're not a person of faith, his background is being a pastor. But in addition to that, he has the Andy Stanley Leadership Coach podcast. And he interviews people from corporate executives of like Home Depot, Coca-Cola, and really tries to get into their mind. And if I'm trying to reach up and become something that I am not, I want to know about the mind of not just investors, but the mind of successful people. So I know John Maxwell, Andy Stanley, I would start there. And obviously the On Purpose Investor Instagram page. But to brag on my friend Eric, who's meant a lot to me, he posts a lot of stuff on there, and it's really good stuff.
Recommend one book, Josh, one that you've been reading lately, or one of your all-time faves, and tell us why you recommend it.
Sure. So I've already talked about several. So make sure you go back to this episode, listen to it a million times, and pick that one up. But here's one I haven't said yet. It's by a book by Jim Collins, and the book is called Good to Great. And in this book, what he does is he goes in, and it's a research study. So teachers, you'll like this because you're into this thing, which is how I got to it. And he looked at successful companies that were already successful and then had a breakout moment and somehow got more successful. Because in the business world, we have to study that. But there's a quote in that book, and it's what the whole book is about. And I'll simply throw this out. And I wrote this down. It's on my board. Here we go. Teachers, what are some areas that we can let go of good to make room for great? There are things that we do in the teaching world that it's hard for us to let go because they're good. They work for us. They make us feel good. But sometimes you have to let go of good because God, or whatever you believe in, for me, it's God. God has something great on the other side of him. He brought me to something to teach me, but now I've learned it. I got to go to the next thing. So I would say that Jim Collins is good to great. And I'm going to throw one more out there. And I got to say this. It's Google this and you'll get the rest of it. I'm going to paraphrase this so it'll work for this podcast. The Subtle Art of Not Giving and I'm going to use the word duck. And it's a funny book. They're going to drop in a word somewhere that you can figure it out. And I remember my grandma would not be proud of the title. But here's what that book taught me. In my life, I only have so many ducks, quack, quack, to give. So I need to quit giving a duck to things in life that don't deserve a duck. And I need to prioritize my life because in my life, there's only 24 hours. I only have so many ducks to give. What would my life be like if I started making sure that I gave the most of my ducks to the things that deserve them and can help me become a better person? So that book will talk with you a lot through a very bad word, but it's going to help you really consider how can you prioritize your ducks.
Thank you so much for not forcing me to tag this podcast episode with the explicit. It's a great book. Yes. Thank you, Josh. On the subject of podcasts and as a support to my work, who is one investor that you would recommend I interview next on the Investing Teacher podcast?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you've already got my number one, which is Eric. I think Eric's probably the greatest one. Man, so this is a hard one because there's not a lot of teachers that are out there doing what it is that we're doing. I don't know a ton of teachers in the space, though I do know a lot of investors that are out there that I'm trying to be like them.
Fair enough, Josh.
You got me.
And a name might come to you later. I mean, the other thing too is they don't have to be a teacher. I do want to interview and speak with other investors who teachers can learn from. So it doesn't have to be strictly a teacher, but that's one we can come back to. As we start to wrap up and say goodbye here, Josh, you've got a couple of great websites I want to give you an opportunity to speak to. So for investors, listeners out there who are interested in your message, and wow, has this been compelling, what can they expect to find at onpurposeinvestor.com and the jrbdreamteam.com, which maybe is strictly Atlanta, I'm not sure, but tell us what you've got going on at both sites.
Sure. So the very first thing is and I'm honored. I came on to On Purpose Investor after the fact. It's an incredible, it's a coaching business, but also a podcast and stuff. And it's all about, we live our life. Once you become an investor, the next step is to make sure that you invest on purpose. And we're not just talking about money. We're talking about becoming the people that we want to be. Because what is the purpose of all this? And what's the purpose of money or time if you don't use it to make a positive impact? So if you go to the On Purpose Investor, Eric and his wife Tiffany started that, and Tiffany is an incredible person, and she's building like a crazy business. And so Eric and I are getting a chance to do that together. But I would tell you, if you want to live an intentional life, you want to live your life, you want to be the one in a million. I'm not just talking about money. If we talk about at the beginning, there's a born date on your tombstone. It sounds kind of morbid, but it's true. And there's a passed away date. If you're the type of person, be it a teacher, you work for the DOT, an investor, I don't care, you basketball player, but if you're the type of person that wants to make that dash count, make that dash that really represents your life matter, that's what we talk about at On Purpose Investor. And it's the same thing there. You can learn about Deal Maker Atlanta, where we're not just talking about making deals, but we live by the philosophy of education and encouragement. And that when we create deals as investors, we don't just create deals for us, but we see the person on the other side and create deals and opportunities for them too. If that's the kind of stuff that gets you excited and motivation, if you go to onpurposeinvestor.com, Eric has wrote a book called The Pathfinder's Journey with his wife, Tiffany. And I would tell you to go read that book. It's written like a fictional story, but there's a lot of great material in there. And I believe if you go to onpurposeinvestor.com/book or ebook, I can't remember which one, but if you go to one of those two, he gives you the book for free. So it's a great thing. And then JRB Dream Team, it is our real estate company. We're licensed in Georgia. But even if you're in some place not in Georgia, in California, Texas, whatever, we are the largest national brokerage. We'd be happy to help you find someone through EXP. But that's our main hub where we're at. And I want to throw something else out there. If you want to get to know me and see the better part of me, which is my wife, Rachel, if you go to our YouTube page, which is Living in the ATL, go check it out. We make videos walking through town. By the way, we've walked some of those houses are our investment properties, if that interests you. And also, we've got a video where we just go eat at 3 crazy donut places. There's a reason why I'm this big, because I like to eat. And I need to be a better investor in my health. I'm working on that. There we go. But if you want to see some YouTube videos to see what we're like as real people, go check us out. We would love to see you there.
There it is, Living in the ATL. Absolutely, yes. Check out the YouTube page as well. That all sounds good. You've got lots of resources for those who have connected with part of your message in this conversation, perhaps been inspired to dream a little bit bigger. As you said earlier, there's a lot of different ways for you to connect with Josh and with his partner, Eric. It's been so good to learn from you. I'm inspired as a teacher, as a current teacher. Investors, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend some of your day tuning in to this podcast. If you enjoyed the content you heard today from Josh Boyd, make sure to connect with him on X. One more time, at JRB Dream Team, on Insta at Living in the ATL, and as you just heard, the YouTube channel by the same name, and finally on his website, onpurposeinvestor.com. In the meantime, keep investing, and I'll meet you next week right here on the Investing Teacher Podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.